So good afternoon everyone. My name is Maurya Hanspal and in this session we're going to talk in general about stock market. And let's talk about some of the reasons as we can see in the present scenario we can see that the market started to correct and people are blaming it completely to the Russia-Ukraine crisis. They think that the stock market is correcting and the main reason is because of the Russia-Ukraine crisis and not the other reasons. But one thing that all of us need to know that the market started to correct even before the Russia-Ukraine crisis came into play. Even before Russia started its invasion over Ukraine or started its bombarding or the bombing things and all that were going on in Ukraine. Okay, so there are a large number of reasons for that, mainly like 3 or 4 reasons we'll try to find out in this session. The first reason which we can all attribute as people are talking about is because of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. But this is not the only reason. Yes, Russia-Ukraine crisis is not the only reason why the market has started to correct. Obviously, it is one of the reasons. So what basically happens in case of such crisis? The positive sentiment among the people who are investing in the stock market, it reduces. Because ultimately when these things happen, the people know. Because all the amount would be spent on war, all the amount would be spent on defense, invasion. So people would be ultimately having a large amount of money to spend upon their own needs, also to spend upon the market, like to buy the stocks. So the one thing that drives the market, we all know, is the buyers and sellers in the market. If the number of buyers are more than the number of sellers, we call it as a bull run. Whereas if the number of sellers are more than the buyers, we people call it as a bear run. Okay, so what is basically happening in the Russia-Ukraine crisis? The behavioral finance is coming into place, which involves all the psychologies, your investment terminologies, and all the conclusions analysis that tend to make about the market. Because ultimately, sentiment is something that drives the market up, and a negative sentiment is something that drives the market down. Okay, because here what is basically happening when the market is starting to correct, the commodities market are on a rise. And why the commodity markets are on a rise? The commodities market are on a rise because a large number of things are imported into various countries, also in India from Russia, Ukraine. A large amount of oil is being imported because Russia is a part of the OPEC plus countries. The natural gas is imported because the natural gas through the pipelines and the pipelines are laid down in Ukraine. And even the Germany also, like they were planning to have a Nord Stream pipeline too from Ukraine, Russia, but that has been stopped currently because of these wars and all, because sanctions have been imposed ultimately. So when this happens, ultimately the prices of the commodities will rise. A large number of the agri commodities, wheat, barley, are being like imported from Ukraine. Your metals, aluminium, nickel. Ukraine, like when we talk about Russia, Russia is the largest importer of these metals, aluminium, nickel, and the other metals as well. So when these things are getting hampered, even the fertilizers as well, because the natural gas is being used in fertilizers. So when this is being not imported or exported, either because of the lack of supply or because of the sanctions which have been imposed on the financial systems, ultimately the trade would be hampered. And that is the reason why the commodities market have started to rise and the stock market has started to correct. And that is just one of the reasons. The second reason that we can talk about is the excessive valuations. The second reason is the excessive valuations. Because when there is pent up demand in the market, because if people have not bought something or not traveled something from a very long time, as we popularly call it as the revenge travel, if people have not done it from the very past, then people would be doing it right now. Okay, and because of that, the people would be buying any kind of stocks in the market because they know the stock market is rising and the prices are on a boom. So any kind of companies, even बेकार से बेकार companies के price बढ़ने start हो जाएंगे, and we call it as the irrational exuberance. So a certain point will come when the people will start to realize that these valuations are so high and the market will start to correct because ultimately over a long term period the mean reversion happens. And what do I mean by mean reversion? By mean reversion, I mean the market would be at a stable point of time that is neither overvalued nor undervalued. The third reason we all know is the interest rates. Because when the interest rates start to rise, it means the bond market is giving them more yields as compared to the equity market. And when the bond market has promised to give them, because ultimately in equity, you do not get the promised rate of return because you have taken the risk. And for that higher amount of risk, you might get that expected return or not, and you have to be prepared for both the scenarios. But what happens if the yields are rising in bonds? The government of that country or the particular country are promising you a fixed coupon payment on that. So that is the result where people start shifting from the equity market to bond market, and that is the result the market starts to correct. And that is like one of the reason because the people are expecting from the US Fed to increase the rate of interest. Fourth is the ABG shipyard. Now you'll say, what is ABG shipyard? It has committed the largest scam in India. More than 22,368 crores have been taken away from this ABG shipyard, because ABG shipyard is a company into the repairing of ships. It, so it had taken loans from top banks, ICICI, PNB, Bank of Baroda, IDBI, and बहुत सारा पैसा उन्होंने like इन कंपनी से लिया है और वापस नहीं करा है. So this can also affect the stock market. The one thing you all people might be knowing about is the NSE scam. The NSE scam has been going on. Or Chitra Ramlingam, like she used to take advice from a guru who people think was none other than Anand Subramanian. Okay, and on the basis of that, like his salary was increased, like he used to get good positions and perks in the organization. And also the foreign institutional investors, they sold the shares in the market like before this news came into place. And also a large number of people from 2010 to 15, they made a money in the market because they used to get the prior information about the share prices. So if this is happening in the largest stock exchange of India, that can also hamper the consumer sentiment also of like investing in the market. So these are some of the reasons why we can say that the market is like going into the phase of correction. And Russia Ukraine is the not only reason.